Prior to German victory in Britain in 1940 and later in Yugoslavia in April 1941, Hitler shifted his focus from Western to Eastern Europe, invading the Soviet Union, formally launching Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in human history. Operation Barbarossa, launched on June 22, 1941, was Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union. It was the largest and most powerful military operation in history. The German army amassing nearly 150 divisions and 3 million soldiers, but the Soviet Union held an amount of 303 divisions and over 5.5 million soldiers. A violation of the Non-Aggression Pact stemmed from several intertwined factors. Nazi ideology, with its core tenet of Lebensraum, fueled a desire for expansion of living space. Hitler also aimed to destroy Bolshevism, which he viewed as a mortal enemy of Nazism. Furthermore, economic motivations played a key role, with the price of Soviet resources, particularly oil and grain, to fuel Germany. German military planners, having studied the Soviet performance in the Winter War with Finland, believed the Red Army was weak and could be swiftly defeated. However, they underestimated the vastness of the Soviet Union and their capabilities. The Germans planned a massive offensive employing blitzkrieg tactics, rapid advances by armored units supported by air power to overwhelm Soviet defenses. On Sunday, June 22, 1941, 3.6 million soldiers, 2,000 warplane pilots, and 3,350 tank commanders stood at the border of Soviet-occupied Poland, ready to invade the communist nation Joseph Stalin had ruled for years. Nearly 3.6 million German soldiers, supported by Allied forces from Finland, Hungary, and Romania, surged across the 900-mile-long border. German aircraft, including bombers and fighter planes, launched attacks on military targets, communication networks, and cities along the frontier. By the end of the first day, over 1,000 Soviet aircraft had been destroyed on the ground. For Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Union, the invasion came as a brutal shock. Despite warnings from his intelligence sources about impending German attack, Stalin was initially reluctant to believe Hitler would open a two-front war. The Non-Aggression Pact, signed in August 1939, had given Stalin a sense of security. In the early days of the invasion, the Soviets were caught off guard. Their air forces were decimated and their troops, poorly equipped and trained, were outmaneuvered by the speed and power of the German advance. German commandos destroyed Red Army communication networks in the west, further hindering the Soviets' response. Despite having a large army consisting over 300 divisions and more than 15,000 aircraft, many of their planes were outdated. The early weeks saw massive encirclements of Soviet forces, resulting in enormous casualties, the loss of valuable equipment, and vast territories falling under German control. German panzer groups advanced rapidly across the vast plains of the Soviet Union. They achieved significant victories, capturing key cities like Minsk, Smolensk, and by September, Kiev. As the German army advanced, the focus turned to Moscow. Hermann Hoth, a German commander, and Erich Hoepner, a German general, linked up with the panzer forces to then successfully trap the 3rd, 13th, and 50th Soviet armies of Bryansk. Later on, the army panzer groups aimed for Mozhaysk and Tula. These pockets were then eliminated on October 14 and October 20. By the end of October, the German army had already covered 2/3 the distance to Moscow, all going to plan for the German army until November arrived. The weather turned colder. With cold and harsh conditions, the winter weakened the plan. The freezing conditions caused the Germans to suffer, losing over 90,000 soldiers who died to the cold during winter. In December 1941, the Soviet Union launched a counter-attack near Moscow, led by General Georgy Zhukov. This marked a major turning point in the war on the Eastern Front. Despite initial successes, such as capturing cities like Kiev and Smolensk, the operation ultimately failed due to poor planning and underestimation of the Soviet strength. The Soviets had superior numbers of tanks and aircraft, though many of their planes were outdated. Hitler believed the Soviet government would collapse within months, but the Germans suffered severe losses, including 200,000 deaths and over 90,000 men lost to frostbite. The failure allowed Soviet forces to regroup and counterattack, eventually leading to Axis defeat. In December 5, 1941,